Hello, Americans and leaders. You are individuals like we are individuals. But no matter how powerful a leader gets, that once forced to entertain quality aspects of nature or fact tribute nature associated with each age of fact tribute nature, yet we've had other communicated for what nature itself and for what our founders communicated about the human fact tribute nature breaching method that was entrenched when they were through their lifetimes and where and how they didn't have free speech because of it. We're supposed to, this was declassified. We know this. Just knowing they had slavery entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies, they employed the quote experts from off their locations of their homes, their campuses, parks near their house. They've been affecting and forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to self-value roles of predicate acts with facts, whole methods of them originally instilled. So they have treatments of like syntax and the motivations. The news is recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirming. They make their influence to pretend examples of free speech to cover up where and how any there are any and all needs legitimate to hide secrets. They've been using or to use truths as lies or to screen them, and increasingly with motivations, increasingly with the breaching method too. The breaching method itself was one of the is the main motivation for anyone to have with their having had roles with slavery or with the different parts of the different identities forced with it and in response to it, like in response to um the value of Uncle Tom as a name um inside of a book reportedly by written by Harry Beecher Stowe. The Harry Beecher Stowe in the Mark Twain House has is not far from the Connecticut State Capitol. Increasingly collusion slash S with intelligence families at Central Connecticut State University and other campuses who have been collusion slash S with names from Wethersfield next to the state capitol too. Involved also next to news locations, where and how that it is recorded. There are recorded means to discern that they do things like make they attach WFSB Connecticut's Channel 3 News, for example. They attach me to fake conversations with themselves and with others, fake locations with themselves and with others. When I was a kid and when I was an adult, they also did this with police and would pretend that I was at the police station and had conversations with them, with people I never had a word of conversation with. And the kids who did go down there and speak with them, and made it look like I responded to them when I was sitting next to them in a car. As their time collusion slash S increasingly with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, the police forms involved, their family members, the ones and the lawyers, their family members, their neighbors, the things, the news at the same time, and the courts' names, and the foreign and domestic intelligence, all hiding the same sequence shifts, all pretending not to realize while self-valuing roles with predicate acts with facts stacked into databases per a method slash S recorded, clearer than day. There are answers that are true always regarding what caused the World Trade Center attack. And I meant to say world wars, but that too. But the world wars and the civil wars. One can't be honest about what caused the world wars if they can't be honest about the civil wars, and they can't be honest about the civil wars if they entertain what is entertained. You guys have, before you could understand what caused the Civil War, you have to understand James Madison's plan caused the Declaration of Independence, caused the Constitutional Convention, and caused the Civil War. It forced the other nature of our founders, which are still being in presidents, distinct from our founders, non-distinct and simultaneous slash hyper simultaneous, but now hyper simultaneous as systems tactile ulterior than that which is hypernative pure, that which nature itself shows us to value. especially differentially, Native Americans value as themselves, but we're in how we appreciate the Constitution unabridged. They are the human species body, sickly distinctly, the human species body of individual bodies, sickly distinctly being hurt to keep us blaming other things other than themselves for how more and more, even though nature is demonstrating its body more and more, other things are being and others ourselves are being blamed for those demonstrations too. So Interbranch also have been forging and switching names and changing and faking digital evidences. They already painted themselves in corners with all sides of criminal and civil cases, leaving out and faking and valuing having been faked, exceptions in exception nature. And shown while being and having been shown needs to pretend not to realize that and needs to hide it preemptively. Increasingly names with the intelligence next to Hartford Hospital and with overt natures of federal criminals and and the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and state police families and retired Wethersfield police chiefs have roles of names next to campuses, intercities, who have been acting, and others been attaching themselves. Also at the schools to fake and changed audio and video. They're on campuses filmed 24/7 where people send their kids to school. They've been faking and changing transcripts to cover up how they have a whole bunch of different countries that have been shared here and there. A bunch of people from Trinity College said that there's a Joshua Stryker involved with a whole bunch of people directly and indirectly involved with the Ray Collusions and a Joe DeMoro and a Joe Aiello involved with putting fake things in databases at the campuses I went, with people at Trinity College involved with this Joshua Stryker, also involved with people involved with murders, and his roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders. The FBI has roles with frauds and with Facebook before they sold it to X. But I can't get a response from X, and then they kicked me off when I bring that up. And someone's, I don't know, I doubt it's Elon Musk, maybe really his mother, a May Musk. In other words, and people trying to play games with emails. In other words, because they already recorded themselves changing and faking digital evidences interstates. Increasingly, people with Maine. There's a Maine unit. There are campuses associated with former Governor Malloy, and involved with East Hartford intelligence families. There's a Bobby Jean and recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involved with Elm Streets in Rocky Hill and Wethersfield, with a bunch of people from Wethersfield out of the state judicial branch offices, out of the state corrections offices, and people from other countries and interstates involved with my neighbors. She doesn't know that, but she knows it's recorded. At least it's plausible. She has been roles with all kinds of natures of investigations. Investigators used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Also has a whole bunch of people. Ray Collusions and Joe DeMoro also have a girl as one of the girls. Like reportedly, it's a federal crime to make it up. Even if he's a police officer or whatever, allowed to make it up. Ray Collusions said that, or confirmed, I believe too. They are confirming that he used my name in a lawsuit against a girlfriend of his and used that to pretend I know her. People from Middlesex Community College too. I had no communications with her in Vermont. People from Middlesex before I went to that school in Middlesex, Connecticut. And increasingly, people tied to that school have roles with judges and prosecutors and their family members in foreign and domestic countries who are ones who had time roles with the World Trade Center attack. And while they were through to other natures of organized crimes like predicate acts with facts. And as people with those types of positions, not just regular police forms, not just regular roles with state police interstates, like with ones increasingly tied to the houses named Collusions and Smith, and they have roles with the Afghan leaders and kids, and some biker people involved with the name Bose. It might be Boseburg, I don't know. With Old Town Cafe, they tried to make a fake exception. I barely had any words. I don't know those people named Bose and Boseburg. It has something to do with their roles next to Fox Connecticut News, with people next to Fox Connecticut News, next to WTNH, and next to WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, 8, 30. In other words, it's other journalist locations. There are people that have been involved with New Haven Register through Central Connecticut State University, is involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and various natures of courts with the same house/S near me, involved with police that attached me to fake conversations with them as a kid and now as an adult. And as their roles of people named Scalora, which they said is their cousins, also with people named Demora that said is their cousins. And these are people involved with police that are supposed to counter things like home break-ins, where they have wire crimes and all kinds of federal evidences, collusions with the home break-ins in different groups, and with the same girl as one of the girls recorded involved. Some kids and adults recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There's a former Neville family who had roles with skiing interstates, and like we're going with taking the kids on ski trips, and he has roles with spots and names along Route 3, which is conjuncted to the state judicial branch offices. With identity theft frauds, I never had a personal conversation in my life. He's increasingly involved with people that have been planting evidences at campuses I went to and between them. And they had time use/S of that, like roles with Robert Rodriguez. I only saw him on my street 2 times in my life, and I did not respond to him either time verbally. He confirmed on Facebook that he about the confessions he made about an untimely death, which also recorded others' confessions and other untimely deaths years apart, and his rules also with one at Trinity College, and with my past neighbors and other people with the ones further from other areas and extended family members of ones further involved with the police confessions over the phone, pretending it's not a confession too. And the roles with the other police that have confessed they were influenced to switch names by the police chief. A police chief, Cintron, is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by his own people. In other ways, it's recorded. He has been using the corner of Elm Street and Route 3 from years since before Mazzucato Bakery was there. But people in my area, intelligence families involved with predicate acts here, they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, as did a Rick Cianfaglione. I basically never saw a Rick Cianfaglione and John Maiano together. The only time I did, real quick, Rick Cianfaglione made, no, I don't even think he was there. No, like, in other words, well, one time it was real quick. I never, in other words, they tried to make a fake exception of us being together as a whole bunch of people at New Britain Superior Court, Hartford Courts, and Connecticut's District Court, like a Brian Silver. They have rules with family members named Leahy. They have been putting fake transcripts, forging names of doctors, and roles with names on the corrections offices and judicial offices for others tied to them, involved with them putting fake things in databases with their educators. And Mr. Neville recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, repeated that things that demonstrated Rick Cianfaglione was involved with that. And he has a brother named Mark Cianfaglione that Paul Zano also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He was trying to fake ties to me, and he repeated the word Jew in front of me while he was making fake exceptions of knowing me and changed communications with me. I never responded when he was saying Jew to my neighbor, and so they could make a fake exception of me knowing him. This kid has been sequence shifting with his educators. I never had a class with him too when I was in grammar school or middle school. Then they put him in a math class where they were trying to make fake exceptions for now in the past because they were covering up what a Ray Collusions and a Paul Zano and a Stephen Stockwell. Stephen Stockwell was involved with wire crime acts and methods and confessions of Weathersfield police who are pretending others simultaneously. with the Stephen Stockwell, involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, and a whole bunch of other countries at Central Connecticut State University in the Britain, Connecticut, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with the Stephen Stockwell, wire crime acts and methods, where they attach people to faked and changed communications with others, and they're putting fake motivations for it. A bunch of boyfriends of a Maria Pazino are involved with that, with also the FBI with New Haven, where she was influenced to try to make fake ties to fake nature ties to me, and have people observe me near her to pretend I know her. Also with spots next to Trinity College, with the judicial branch, and Weathersfield Pizza Houses with the judicial branch offices. I never saw Maria Fazina on Weathersfield, a campus in Weathersfield in my life. Her neighbors, like a Brian Bowen, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He has roles with criminally foreign influence use /S of investigations of investigators, and roles with people along Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway with drugs and medicines, crimes, identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts with my neighbors too, including a Joshua Julian and a Ray Collo with a principal, a child abuser's campus with a Phil Collo too, was his roles with them, with the Whiting Forensics, with the Facebook page of a principal upskirt nature who was recorded involved with way worse digital crimes with them. Ones with the name Tomorrow said that they have roles with the malls in Connecticut and town line locations that recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed they have roles with foreign and domestic intelligence and medical families. There have been collusions at all natures of crime scenes and with a bunch of people at the Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts who had collusions with West Hartford locations and East Hartford locations before the World Trade Center attack. And they have had predicate acts every year since, roles with people in the background who have been sticking predicate acts with facts and databases. Central Connecticut State University also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by little kids and adults there when I was an adult. And they affected confessions to me, also in the form of them to then pretend I even know the person or even know how they look like or who they are, or they even know me. Well, people about the roles, a bunch of ways, and people with the intelligence at Central Connecticut State University and the interbranch at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. They have predicate acts with facts with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, mayors, their family members, and ones like a former mayor Gold is increasingly recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by little kids and adults involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, first force, and sexual and medical offenders of kids, as families involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones like a John DeMorrow and a Joe DeMorrow, involved with their families, also with a Paul DeMorrow, with wire crime acts and methods with them, putting fake and criminally foreign influence actively delusions raw, uses of investigators, something to do with their roles along, like with a where an Omni place used to be. It used to be an Omni gym, and I never had a word of conversation, never saw him around. A guy who fought Paul Spadafora. I fought Paul Spadafora my first year of boxing in Ohio State Fair in the finals. But the guy he fought, Peter Cardona, he's associated with the Omni Gym and with a guy from Puerto Rico who said he's involved with a family, and his name is Cintron. And that's what Sandy Hook campus's names said, including a prison campus there that is involved, that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have roles with criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, quality, aspects, and delusions relative, where and how they were recorded forcing a principal child abuser, and collusion /S with retired police chiefs in the houses next to me, involved with a bunch of people since I was a kid with Whiting Forensics that has been planting identity theft, fraud, slanders, including with the FBI, including with counters to everything like child abuses. There are DCF investigators involved with sexual circles and people with the different departments at Central Connecticut State University, involved also with like a detective Samuda with sexually nature and things like with ties between they forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded ties between Elena Davenport and a Heather Hansen that they don't even know. And it has Heather Hansen's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the people involved with the World Trade Center predicate acts and with news people with other corners on her street. And she lives on a corner, or she did, on Church Street in Old Weathersfield. There are a bunch of people involved with the people that have been stacking predicate acts with facts and databases, with judges and prosecutors and overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time. And people pretending they know me behind my back that I don't know at all. And others who make fake exceptions, like have a picture of someone standing near them, but then we never had a word of conversation. We're just in a moment, like with Dawn LaConch. Dawn LaConch is increasingly involved with her family members with sexual and medical offenders of kids, overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and with the FBI on Facebook with more upskirt pictures, with more men and women judges, black, white, female judges, involved with male judges too, with this detective Samuda, with a Judge Smith, a judge killing and faking and changing digital evidences, lying about why and how he did that, putting fake things in databases as collusions with what's and changing what's really recorded. These are families involved with a whole bunch of probate court judges involved with the same house/S with a whole bunch of distinct natures of federal evidences crimes. Also criminally foreign influence ones, because these are also the ones named Scalora, and it has roles on Facebook too. So I have to make it look like I don't know I'm on Facebook. They're trying to plant evidence on Facebook with a subby Scalora that has been trying to make it look like he knows me since I was a kid. With his cousins are increasingly involved with proven child abusers, leaders of the kids, First Forest, whole bunch of different natures of doctors also involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, with little identity theft, fraud, slanders, punk tricks, intercities involved with this, and interstates. There are people in Miami, Florida, also with a bunch of, Central Connecticut State University in New Brighton, Connecticut, is recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirmed. Paul Kelly recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There's a people with the name Violet involved with them also, with the names next to Hartford Hospital, with the Air Force and other natures of people with the Navy and family members and other countries, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the same ones countering it, not legitimately undercover and treating with all kinds of medicines crimes with the branches of government too, where relative are their delusions too, and where and how they were recorded, used remotely by the breaching methods, showing they need to pretend other. So they want to have a need to have debates about things that only appear to be debatable too, because they're not using what's not debatable, and they're not using exception nature legitimately. And so we're gonna examine, because Sandy Hook campuses, including a fire campus there, they increasingly have collusion/S with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the difference of the countering bodies, like the security with the school, the psychiatry with the school, the other natures of, and and someone tell Judge Napolitano, there's a Mike DeMay, who I walked in there. I was barely there. I walked in there. I mean, I into a community center one time, and he ran off the stage because he was being hypnotized with others on the stage, also tied to it tomorrow. It's confessions. I think their name was Schlechta. I never saw them together. They must have taken a picture of me walking by Schlechta, the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. Sorry, Chris Schlechta, Mark Schlechta. In other words, I don't know whether someone, Joe DeMoro, has been planting evidences, identity theft, fraud, slanders with the FBI, who has been speaking and with X now too, not just Twitter. They're changing and faking what we say when we try to counter things on digital media, because the digital media is already there recorded. Increasingly, Eric Eric Oliveri recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He's got a Craig Oliveri and parents that have been planting identity theft, fraud, slanders, also with him, with fake conversations about me, but lies about me and to my family and to my educators behind my back. And I still can't get them on paper because they also had time collusions with the names at the judicial branch offices and corrections offices, and increasingly planting evidences with people at each campus I went. And between them, there was time use / S of that were demonstrated roles with murders with the people next to Trinity College and CCSU, involved with the judges and prosecutors that they've been planting, recording people after they recorded other. There's all kinds of ways that the investigators are shown and they had to hide how they already used all natures of investigators and instances and names, including their own and others, and sequence shifts, self-value. That's why and how they, for example, they get away with pretending they don't realize. If they hear someone say, black people's whites of eyes, having that is inseparable from the subject of slavery. Hypercriminal foreign influence, not just criminal foreign. If we were honest when where and how criminal foreign influences is also inseparable from the subject of slavery. But it wasn't what was constant about it. It was all true all ways. It was hyper foreign because it was not just north and south entrenched. It was north and south entrenched, sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly. So even though it was but that's because there's all natures of order were our tactical terror from how nature shows us to appreciate order. There is that one singular identity of order that is not our species body. It is not the other species bodies. It is its own identity of value / value progression, why and how all the distinct species of bodies are also species bodies of individual bodies, with all group differences being generated by itself. That which generated all things, which we know exists only to an extent. Only the extent of it is debatable. But there are theories that are pretended scientific. Because, for example, all the ways and how measured and maintained are criminally foreign influence, fact, human nature, quality, aspects in nature, and or that body is sensed, was and is sensed, including if that body is a majority of people, including if it is everybody. And that is adapted to by the breaching method, including if it is a whole country, including if it is any grouping of countries, well as locations, areas, and states. Hypercriminally foreign influence, quality, aspects, and fact treatment nature, and relative tactical delusions that could easily be replaced. And people are just speaking delusions, even though they know they're not. They're speaking nonsense because that's all anyone is speaking. People have to pretend other, and to value getting away with that. They have to value how they're all styles, natures of people that have blamed things like war, and put serious acting towards that, even or serious applications by that. But then when it comes up, except using exception agent. Dishonesty, if someone brings up the breaching method, we don't leave out black people's whites of eyes and the hyper native pure forbid, not just Native Americans. I mean, and colonists. That breaching method had slavery entrenched through our founders' lifetimes, and they communicated for us to understand that entrenchment and the methods by it that had nothing to do with it. And had needs to have more and more exceptions to have everyone pretend for itself that there's not a breaching method involved. Otherwise, that body would be sensed, but through our own. No one had the right to speak for integrity. Someone brings up that, clearer than day. People are tortured, extorted, and enslaved. Fact, human nature enslaved, therefore physically enslaved in New York City. That who wants to debate that? Will have their quality aspects of fact, human nature itself with demonstrations of the same thing. But the only reason this has gotten away with being debated is relative to a method / ESTA has manifest into branch forging and switching names, self-valued offensively, all kinds of due process racketeering, worse than war crimes methods, identity theft, fraud, slanders methods, while tactically delusions raw. I'm not a doctor. One of the reasons people aren't going to go into psychiatry is because they're clearer than day. They're involved with all kinds of medicines crimes, drugs crimes, and delusions. Each of the gates to the industry. You know, they see people coming because the names of the people of the sciences, you guys, since you were kids, you guys are speaking other than our founders communicated and what nature itself communicated. You guys were pretending and passion, trying to pretending passions and emotions dishonestly when people counter isms uses. Especially it's hypercharged with anti-Semitism, as their roles with the Department of Education too, with sexual and medical offenders of kids that are also religious nutbags that are sequence shifting, calling attacks upon themselves. There's a Miss Riley, increasingly confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed by people involved with predicate acts with facts with databases, her roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and relative delusions, and with the sabotage of my education, and with a domain family, further involved with sexual and medical offenders too, with police departments, police types, intercities, FBI Director Robert Luskin, also next to Fox Connecticut News, with Adam Domain, with a Mike Domain, and with their family members and neighbors, and including a Mazzucato family, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with a police chief Centron, and 1 years ago in their intimate ties, involved with an 80 Carroll Drive and conjunctions to them, people who have had conversations regarding me and them. All natures of those conversations are being and have been used criminally for and both tactically delusions raw, including the people with the name Tomorrow and Heather Hansen, who have roles with relative home break-ins, and other people had roles with different home break-ins with Heather also in the area. And these are people that were involved with foreign and domestic intelligence specifically, so they couldn't and can't. And they were untimely deaths years apart, where they were time use / estimate role with little, where people also make a nonverbal communication. Whole bunch of people who had conversations with my name involved with people with the last name Cleesa, a Terry Cleesa, a Ryan Cleesa, and their mother. Have roles with some more sexual and medical offenders of kids with police forms. And I love the Cleesa family. I love Mr. and Mrs. Cleesa. So then they're trying to make fake things and fake. They're trying to make me mad at the you know or where and different things with them because there were people involved with them trying to plant evidences and fake motivations for why and how they approached me a few times, but before they moved out, and before Mr. Cleesa died and Mrs. Cleesa died. And I'll never have anything but love for them. But these are also, they were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to roles with various natures of federal evidences crimes and criminally foreign influence uses of databases at Trinity College with people involved with some untimely deaths at Trinity College that were involved with some murders and other untimely deaths years ago. And these are also people that brought up the principal child abusers campus and roles with the Facebook stewards of the campus with sexual and medical offenders of kids and retired police chiefs and their intimate ties. And he was standing at the time, police chief Cintron. So there are also people with the prisons tied to the corrections offices with a I don't even know. I think his name is Dave. They tried to make it. They apparently took a picture of me near him. I didn't have a word of conversation with him. He's increasingly with foreign and domestic military and FBI, who has been planting evidences with courts also at boxing gyms in Connecticut, putting fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, fake motivations for why people say he said, she said. Like a bunch of people from Central Connecticut State University have roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, federal evidences, crimes at boxing gyms with people behind my back and with the people with the police and courts switching and forging names with overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time, lying about what they think when people use short words, let alone when they make long words. They're trying to cover up because that's recorded. So the same, they're directing their news officials to say things and pretend motivations, but they're having the other ones make confessions, and they're being used to sense who's going to be quality fact checking nature and try to counter that. So, or what body, including if it's a whole country. This is against all three of those differences. This is changing what is communicated about how we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time, with the exceptions part. This is replacing how nature communicates to us with a special difference, let alone us if we are as the human species body, us as the Native, I'm not Native American, but they're still part of our human species body. And they are still means to discern the Constitution abridged and other pretended simultaneously. Native Americans, we don't have to be Native American to discern how they could discern that their rights are abridged. They have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. Relative to those hyper-criminal foreign influences, not just criminal foreign influences. This breaching method needs countries A through Z to blame things that it caused and keeps as a hyper-criminally foreign influenced body. Needs it to be blamed on criminal foreign influences when clearer than day. What's actually written is that there are forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded self-bodied roles with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents and exceptions and exception nature simultaneously. Because we have to rely on nature itself to show us this. Even what our founders communicated to us, they replace. All pace, boxings. I teach those things. Boxing loves. Boxing wants us to hear the song it sings, but it makes no words, but shush. In other words, boxing, martial arts, and wrestling, they share an identity, the identity designed to share. And they're about fighting by the rules. But the rules have been abridged since some ancient times. So fights as fact treatment nature only more deeply screen the breaching method and invest names and sides A through Z of the human species body deeper and deeper and incapable of defending their fact treatments, their fact treatment nature, their subject treatments, their exceptional treatments simultaneously, and of affording to be, let alone to protract short words properly by that, let alone with convictions, with guilt assignments. Exactly the way the breaching method wanted and needed to leave itself. The breaching method knew that nature itself would increasingly demonstrate to countries A through Z. A human fact treatment nature breaching method, for example, has the suburbs manifest in America, in Russia, and in Ukraine, as with influences that were designed for torture, extortion, and fact treatment nature slavery. The only reason that could be gotten away with requires self-bound uses of criminally foreign influence, fact treatment nature, quiet aspects of nature. Involved with how to discern it, you have to be able to discern why our founders communicated for us to refer to them plural as James Madison singular. And then he went to get George Washington to agree to help them and to use that plan. But we were supposed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. And we're supposed to understand this principle of American history, that George Washington used the help not just of his own soldiers left over, but of James Madison and the founders plural behind him, that nature itself and the title president / chief shows us in how they didn't have free speech, shows us that Native Americans too are our founders. But we were directed to refer to our founders plural as James Madison singular. But that is replaced from being known. And so the people are lying to the judges who rely on other types of experts, etc. In other words, all the jobs, narratives, and things like that. This breaching method knew that our founders communicated us to for us not to leave out the differences of the collusion/S with the private criminal enterprises, or the ones that were private industries too. You know, couldn't defend that as there were still rules with those criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, quality aspects of nature that were entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies right after the Civil War too. That's what caused the world wars. What was fluent through our countries to stay. Not this or that, but everything. Vaccine. All blaming other things, others, ourselves. And forced to do that, to pretend to be integrity at A through Z. To be integrity, you have to be able to handle short words proper that little kids could understand about the predicate acts with facts method. That method that forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded the names of the human species body of individual bodies while defending themselves as fact treatment nature. Not to realize, but to be self-defending themselves more and more as systems tactical terror from the one that shows us how to speak for the sciences, for difference/S, which is all about hyperaditional nature. Only the extent of it is debatable. So the nature of debate contains people relying upon theories of experts that are used offensively to sense for the breaching method, because they are like with the theory of relativity. Nature shows us every day all kinds of ways. There is relativity/hyperrelativity. We think having black people's whites of eyes is relativity/hyperrelativity. Vaccine. I'll gather flag. Who disbelieves. So please. Also, there's the name Morin, and then they have misspelling, and then they switch names too. All kinds of tricks just to keep things where they make the subject treatments formally as or as their collusions formally at interbranch locations or at the crime scenes. They have the difference of guilt there too, at the same time with overt criminal enterprise by hundreds of countries. Differences racketeering worse than war crimes. Their own and others, all natures of differences. In other words, please get them onto paper, one name in sequence. They're searching for things to pretend. Or they attack you with the different people with their differences. And specifically ones with their educators that are knowing that they're not letting people know names because they're trying to see how they're going to respond. And make sure that they're leaving out the other foreign names involved and the hyper-foreign. Because they have roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. The black theme, KKK, Latino theme, Italian theme, and other with the state judicial branch offices and with names next to it involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders too. And right on Facebook, this is recorded. Facebook has collusions with them too, though, changing and faking what's actually digitally recorded. They have collusions with sexual and medical offenders, leaders of kids force, with New Britain Superior Court. And before the principal child, while Ann Rose forcing a principal child abuser with a Joshua Julian, with people that with Officer Jerry Miller who confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. There's a Kerr family, ones with the name Jerry Kerr, more than one, and I know there's a Michael Kerr in the family. I don't remember the mother's name, but they're also involved with insurance companies and investigators of all natures. with the World Trade Center attack. Has something to do. I don't know the name of that. I keep forgetting to look for the name of that business. Not Kentucky Fried Chicken and not the Mobile, but diagonally across from the Mobile, that business there, through different owners. A Kerr family has rules with judges and prosecutors, and with people named Demaro and Colo. When I was a kid, and then when I was an adult, a whole bunch of people tied to them like a Mark Violet, and people with the name Carone. I don't even. They don't know me. Try to make fake exceptions of knowing me. People tied to them. I don't know their names yet. I know some of them. Former director of the FBI has something to do with their with their roles with the town lines and Central Connecticut State University. Central Connecticut State University has people involved with sexual and medical and religious spots and groups like a Mark Violet, recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed. There's a Mark Carone, a Kevin Carone, and there's a Justin Kovitskis who also said that there's a Danielle Perone involved with them, with some black KKK theme, Latino theme, identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. And they making it look like they know me in a park. I had no communications with them there verbal. That's why it was weird. No, was standing there. If they took a picture, there were proofs that they took a picture. These are increasingly people with former mayors from Wethersfield. Other natures of other natures of politicians that have roles from other classrooms with little tricks, putting things in classroom, putting things in databases fake, even tricking the kids to take part with that against themselves. And but in other words, because they know the method keeps everyone not being able to go back and speak legitimately about the past. Otherwise, it has a whole bunch of people invested. They need to sense that and jump in and change and fake what's recorded as their roles, with simultaneously need to value having been and further take them criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions rot, the readings of statutes and precedents. So there are people with the name Bayer as one of the lawyers involved with a police chief Cintron, involved with people with Mazzucato Bakery and different, and since in that corner, since before that business was there, through different ownerships of the gas station there. Since it was an Exxon, I don't know if it's still an Exxon. Ray Collo worked there. That's one of the people involved with all sides of criminal and civil cases with a Ray Collo and a Joe DeMar, with many tied to them. And with the people with the businesses and houses next to Hartford Hospital, also involved with various natures of drugs and medicines crimes with kids and guns crimes with kids. And with a Blue Trails gun range. And with in other words, something to do with the two-route highway and their roles with multiple probate court judges, family members, a Dr. Shub recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed of modern languages involved with all these different countries, with people on off two-route highway and Kitts Lane, involved with the people that my neighbors are involved with, that the ones with the police that pretended conversation with me when I was a kid and now, and their roles with the people from other areas with the untimely deaths that made confessions on my street to make you look like we're all one group. Tactically ulterior from how we are. And still, I'm a person who like, I would try to save their lives if someone was going to happen to them. Even they're trying to kill me. Because I know these are in people being influenced to pretend behaviors by other. I don't know if they're in the military or what. But they're pretending passions and emotions and fake motivations. Since I was a kid, people from other areas were the ones increasingly involved with the police that are refusing to get on paper and attach me to fake ties, fake natures of ties to themselves and others at the same exact time as collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. You make sure I get a response for the police named Mendez and further involved with the schools and the security and the medicine. You guys have all kinds of faked and changed. They even transcripts pretending into databases. You go speak to your leaders, they're changing what you say. They're only capable of it now. Make sure Connecticut campuses, make sure too, Weathersfield campuses get on paper, one name and sequence. I want a response for what I recorded them doing with the principal child abuser and for his confessions and the rest of the names he brought up, like a Michael Levine. A Mike Levine, I never had a word of conversation with in my life. A Mike Levine's one of the ones involved with people tied to them or recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the World Trade Center predicate acts. And they involved him with identity theft and fraud slander. I don't know if he knows about it or not, but on the side of Walmart, on places in conjunctions to Town Line Drive and all along Route 3, which is conjuncted to the state judicial branch offices. Increasingly in whiting forensics is increasingly involved with people along the Brome Turnpike before the heart of Hartford and along Route 3 and along Route 175 and their conjunctions, planting evidences, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people, and fake motivations at the same time with other countries and the hyper-foreign relative. The hyper-foreign never went away as a scientific value, as that which had slavery entrenched sickly distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies. You guys shouldn't be so surprised where and how we have to have seriously take this serious. You haven't heard an expert of the science take their science serious, except for as criminal insidiousness nature. I'm not a lawyer. Thank God. Law Trantola and lawyers on all sides of criminal and civil cases, while he rolls with exceptions like lawyers planting advertisements. He's got roles all kinds of identity theft, frauds, federal evidences rackets with judges and prosecutors and the networks, the intelligence at and next to Fox Connecticut News, at and next to WFSB, at and next to WTNH, their sources, planting evidences. So Paul Kelly, let's get them on paper, one name and sequence. And let's not pretend that you makes you fear God to pretend I had communications with you. And what's your neighbor's names? Because your neighbors have and more roles with women involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, identity thefts and frauds, and with the judges involved. One's named Delaferro, and with my neighbors, and with their extended family members, Scalora and Apel Cololo, further involved with predicate acts in my street, and we're going to have to do this peacefully. Well, that means we're going to need it on paper because they have weapons and other natures of organized crime and threats involved, and people I don't know the names of involved with that, and they demonstrated they know my name. In other words, fear God. These are people between social platforms too, with digital crimes with the courts and the police forms and the federal agencies. Increasingly, 2 speech class teachers I had have roles with Washington, D.C., and with the World Trade Center, with all kinds of natures of organized crimes. In other words, so what are they doing with the community center too? Whoa. Get them off the fake conversations with me.